Okay, so this is going to be a short little video to help you prepare for exam number three. So I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through um, the two problems, at least be a better sense of what the two problems are going to be, what you're going to need to be able to deal with on those for our problems for chapter five and for chapter six. So the first one's going to be dealing with chapter five. Remember, chapter five was around functions, lookup functions, um, you know, the idea of being able to create a named range, things like that. All right. So the particulars of the scenario are, the we call the pro shop sales. Kind of a background. The what we have is from a starting workbook is going to be dealing with information about a pro shop's transactions, and we're going to be helping them create a workbook to let them do an analysis of the work. All right, so kind of go through. So we'll be downloading it. I think we've gone through this a couple times. Um, First thing we're going to need for it to do is we're going to have a couple if statements. So one of the things we're going to be looking at is going to be we're going to first thing we need to do is to return put the text certified into a field of a certain number of hours is completed 50 or more. All right, so that when if not, then it would be not certified. So in that case, we're thinking, the appropriate tool would be, or the appropriate function would be an if statement. All right, because it would be if we're checking for something. One thing we do one thing if it's one thing, and we do the other thing if it's not. All right, and then kind of a similar thing here. Enter a function will return a 0.05 if the customer uses cash and the gross revenue is greater than 100. So in this case, we have two qualifiers. So this is going to be, as we said, if we look at this, the key word here, and we'll give you a clue about what the appropriate function should be. All right, so it would be an if, an and function, and then, the two results. Because remember, the way an if statement is structured is you've got the logical statement. You say if logical statement, do one thing if it's true, do one thing if it's false. All right. So another thing we have here, there's a couple worksheets. So one of the things you always want to take a look at is see what worksheet you need to be working on at any given point in time. All right. So what we're going to look for is we're going to create for number four, where we're looking for a formula that will return the value of high if the customer has purchased 12 items or more, or if they have a total sales amount that is greater to or equal to 1,000. All right, so as we see here, this is going to be a or situation. So this is going to be, we want the value of if the customer has purchased more than 12, or if they have a sales total is greater than or equal to 1,000. All right. Otherwise, if that's the case, that would be a low. All right. So the key here is going to be, kind of a review of the or function. Let's see. We have a part of what they're looking to do is create a rewards program. So another case here. So in cell O10, create a formula that will return 0.1 if the customer is a member and they purchased either a promotional item or spent more than $100. Otherwise, return a blank value. So once again, that's going to be a situation where we're going to be having a combination of ands and ors. All right. To to work our way through that. One point around this, you want to format the cells as percentage. We want to return 0.01, but you format the cell as percentage, so it'll show up as a 10%. All right, and then copy it down through the other ones. And then for P10, once again, another situation, another similar, kind of a similar thing. Basically, what we're going to need to do here is going to be, check to see if the customer has spent more than 200 hours or if they simply purchased a promotional item. Otherwise, return a blank value. All right, so 5 and 6 are pretty much the same kind of thing, a little bit of a different, a little bit of a different flavor on it. Okay, that's fields O and P. Number 7, we're going to have a chance to look at the IFS function. All right, so this is going to be, you remember we had talked about this, the idea of the IFS function being an if statement that we can use to put things into different categories. So something is IFS, if something is greater than 40, we put one value in. If it's greater than 25, we put another value in. Otherwise, we put beginner, right, by default. All right, so there's an example of that we had worked through in the slide decks. We have a nested if. So in this case here for number 8, another case where we have a nested if. All right, so the trick with nested ifs are you really want to break the logic down. Remember, we kind of if you want a diagram, it would be very helpful. So what we want to see is so there's 3 scenarios here in this one. All right, we can use a nested if function. All right, and in this case, what we would be looking for is to see if somebody's high, which is based upon their last transaction, high value customer based on the last transaction, like them to get 20% off if they're a member. So first set of logic is they have to be a club member and a high value customer based on their last transaction. All right. If they're not a member, but if it's still a high value customer, we give them 15% off. And if it's none of those, all right, we're going to end up giving them 10%. All right. So you look at the values that are in. So I5 and I17 are the values. That's I5 and I17 is really a range of cells. So you can use the range of cells into a formula and then copy the formula down. All right. For 9 and 10, we'll be looking at the VLOOKUP. So a VLOOKUP, so there is a static value in there presently. All right, and what we need to do is replace the static value with a VLOOKUP function. So it's going to be equal VLOOKUP, the value, where we want to do the lookup from, and then what we want to, whether we want to retrieve it, which cell of the range do we want to bring back, or all right. So kind of take a look at what the VLOOKUP, kind of get familiar. You've seen it. We've done a couple of examples of them, but you want to kind of get practice with it. 10 is really kind of almost the same thing, except that we're going to use an HLOOKUP. All right, so a VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. So another case here. All right, so the commission. All right, so what we want to do is we want to enter a formula that will return values based on the following. All right, so if somebody is an assistant manager, all right, so this is going to be, so in this case, we're going to be looking at the employee analysis worksheet. All right, so it's a different worksheet. In cell D23, look for a formula will return the values in the following. So we want to do a lookup for an assistant manager. If somebody's an assistant manager, we put 05. Otherwise, so once again, it's another if statement. For all other customers, use customer rate tables. All right, to retrieve the correct commission rate based on the total revenue value. All right, then we multiply the rate times the total revenue to calculate the commission. All right, so this one's going to take, you want to sit down and kind of work, look at the layout of the worksheet, kind of what that is, and then structure the appropriate if statements to be able to pull that off. All right. So in this case here, we have different, look for items that are, so this would be an example of using the not. All right, so what we would do is we would look for anything that's accessory. We would look for everything that would be accessories and then say, and do the inverse of it. All right, so this is another case. We'll replace the static value by entering a formula that will return yes if it's not accessories. Otherwise, no if it is accessories. All right, so what we'll want to do is if something is not accessories, all right, then we would put yes if it's not accessories. Otherwise, return a no. All right. This next one here is going to be, so this is going to be an example of our index and match. So there's the example spreadsheet we had gone through, which combines these two elements together. All right. So we're going to do we want to do a match function. So let's see, J23, enter a match function will return the row number for whatever category is selected in H20. In K23, we want to use a match function to return the column number of employee ID. And then in H23, the third, so there will be a match, and an index function using the range G5 through K9 as an array. All right, and then once in J23 and K23 is the row and column. Remember what when we're talking about the relative addresses inside of an index and a match, and a VLOOKUP, what we're talking about is the stuff that's in the range. So in this case, it would be within this G5 K9, that range of cells is the table we're going to be doing the lookup in. All right. We have another example here of using an index function, right? So we'll retrieve the customer ID, of the customer with the highest total sales from the array A4 to G16. All right, so it'll be another example. You could go back and take a look at how the index function is structured. All right. Now we have another one here, which I'm probably going to end up doing what I'll do is probably going to do a demonstration. I'll probably put a little video around this one here for number 15. Okay. So something called the indirect function. We really didn't talk about it too much, but I'm going to do a quick little video, record a quick little video and put it out there so we take a look at it. So what we'll end up doing is, in this case, we have two different tables. Okay, so we have one table. We have a table that is has one set of values for shipping, and then another table has another set of values for shipping. And what we need to do, depending upon whether something is a priority or an express, we can use the indirect function to point us to the right table. Okay, so it's really a matter of, okay, I've got two tables on that, so, and this is on the shipping cost worksheet. as well. All right. So what we'll want to do is you'll want to use this indirect function um, to do a make a determination of whether something is a um, priority or an express. All right, and then we can do the lookup. Then we can do a VLOOKUP of once we know what the correct table is, we can do a VLOOKUP to determine the correct value. Okay. All right, and then for 16, what we have is there's a couple formulas that are bringing back an NA. And what we want to do is we want to use an if error. So in this case, what we'll do is we will wrapper the function, the first function, with an if error. All right, so it'll read like if error function. You know, the first function. So if we're doing a lookup or whatever that function is, we will execute that function, and then the if error should go back and determine if there was an error and put a blank value in if an error is encountered in these cells here, G10, H10, and J10. All right, so the if error should go away, or excuse me, the NA is because what happens is the lookup value. What will happen is the lookup value is blank, which is an error condition. But if it's not captured, what it'll do is it'll by default will put an NA in place. Right? And then for the last and hopefully not least, on the transactions worksheet, we want to calculate the net revenue by multiplying the gross by 1, the sum of all discounts. All right. So what we want to do is we want to add up all of the discounts, sum those up, and then multiply that, use that to multiply that against our gross revenue to give us our net revenue. All right. So if I have like a 7%, 10%, 5%, because we have we'll have 2 or 3 or 4 different percentages of potential discounts. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go through, add those up after we've done all the calculations of them, and then multiply that out. All right. And in this case, we also would want to do an if error. So what we would do is we would create the formula to calculate it. And if there's an error, we'll put a blank in place. All right. And same thing at the end. What we'll do after we calculate this, then we can go back and calculate the total discount by subtracting the net revenue from the gross revenue. All right, that'll give us what our discount number is. Once again, if there's an error, so this will be a case where we will have we'll have a calculation to do something in a formula, and then we'll have an if error kind of outside of it. So we've done some examples around those. You can go back and take a look at those as well. All right, so that's going to be, the exercise we do for 5. Let's take a look at the exercise for 6. So remember, 6 is about tables and pivot tables. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do, the first thing we're asked to do here is to convert the plain data sets to be a table. All right, so what we'll do is, so for the auto sample worksheet, first thing we'll do, we'll take that table, take the data that's on that, and turn that into a table. All right. And then the other thing we'll want to do is we want to create a car database named range on that. Okay. Next thing we'll want to do is create 6 blank rows above the table to create an advanced filter. Now I'm going to do the video. I'm putting together a video for the advanced filter. It's a little tricky because what you need to do is you need to set all of the data up. So what you need to do is you need to put the 6 blank column, 6 blank values, or 6 blank rows, the column header, and the values you want to do the lookup on, and then you create the filter. All right. So if you do the filter, if you try to create the filter before you've got all this other stuff set up, it will not work. All right. So you have to. So I have a video of creating and executing an advanced filter. So you can take a look at that. We'll step you through that. All right. Um, so you only want. So what we want to do is we want to create basically filter the table that's out there, that's on the auto sample, the car database table. Reduce take out everything so we only show stuff that has an automatic transmission. It's a mid-size and has an MSRP of less than 30,000. All right, and what will happen is when you execute the advanced filter, it'll take all the other data out, and we'll only have those entries out there. So what we want to do is then copy, after we create that, copy that set of data, all right, and then paste it into the selected vehicles worksheet. So we're going to reduce the stuff down, create it, and use it to create data, or copy and paste data onto the selected vehicles worksheet. All right, and then once we're done, we can clear the filters. All right, on the auto sample. All right. So then for 9, we have a database totals worksheet. All right, which is really going to be the data that we created from using the advanced filter. What we're going to want to do is calculate the vehicles, use the MSRP as the field in our calculations, calculate vehicles that meet the following criteria. All right, so it's a vehicle year is newer than 2015, transmission type is automatic, all right, and the miles per gallon is greater than 25. So what happens is we're going to do a reduction up here, and then we're going to do another level of filtering, all right, with this, selecting only these values, or vehicles that match this criteria. All right. Then we're going to go back to the original, the auto samples worksheet, and we're going to use that. We're going to convert that data table into a pivot table. All right. And we'll put it onto a new worksheet. We'll call it pivot analysis. All right. And what we'll do is we'll do the calculations through the make field as the rows, and the MSRP as the values. And then we can change the calculation. So kind of walking through this. So we'll change the MSRP calculation so it calculates the average of MSRP and formats the field with 2 decimal places. This is an accounting field. So that's going to be basically on the formatting side. And then also it's going to ask us to change the row labels on the pivot table. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a slicer. So we're going to create a drill down of Volkswagens into a new worksheet, and then rename the worksheet Volkswagens. All right, so we're going to create one basically as a list of, and we'll select that everything's got Volkswagens, copy it out of the pivot table and put it and drop it onto a new worksheet. And then on the pivot analysis worksheet, we're going to add a year slicer, a vehicle slicer, and a year let's see. So we'll have a year slicer and a vehicle slicer. And you're just going to move the year slicer to show vehicles 2010 and newer, and we'll put those at the upper left corner of the 2 cells here. And then once we've done that, we'll take that information, we'll create a clustered bar pivot table. Right? 'Cause as we said, we can create multiple um, table types or multiple chart types. So we can copy that. So we can copy create a pivot chart and apply the 10 style. So when we have the chart, when you select the chart, when you select the chart object, it'll pull up that thing, and you should be able to make the adjustments um, to that. And then what we'll want to do is create a new worksheet with the pivot table on its own worksheet. All right. So you can take a look at this. As I said, you can kind of look at this in advance, so you get a sense of what the some of the stuff you want to maybe take a look, gather your notes together around our lectures and some other things. So you'd have this going into when we actually work with the exercises for Chapter 5 or Chapter 6. All right. I have a couple other things I'm going to be putting out here as well. A couple other videos to go along with. So we have the one out there dealing with the index and the match. All right, and I'm going to put one together now to step you through uh, the sequence for the advanced filtering. As I said, that people seem to get hung up on the advanced filtering because it's really dependent upon getting the sequence of what what we create for step 1 versus step 2 versus step 3. All right. Any questions on this? Give me a yell, and we'll try to obviously before Thursday. All right. That's about it. Talk to you a bit. Thank you.